Celestia, Trixie Lulamoon, A True Love by Switch Down. One day were Cadence and Shining Armor over for a visit to Canterlot to see Celestia and Luna. They saw that Celestia and Luna looked so tired. They have noticed that they have been ruling Equestria for so long, and they have never had any break. But during this time, especially now, only about a week earlier, Celestia and Luna had delegations, ambassadors from Saudi Arabia, Griffithstone, and the Hippogriff Kingdom, and the Dragons in Canterlot for discussing about some trading with each other of each kingdom. And they spent almost an entire day and almost half of the night discussions with the ambassadors or just themselves talking about this, trading, about trade of goods, anything else. And they talked about the ambassadors for nearly 4 days in a row. And they tired them out. And even at that, Luna had mentioned after when they met Cadence in Shining Armor that she was so tired she couldn't barely raise the moon. Even she had sleep most of the day, she was so tired even at night. She could barely raise the moon or even lower the moon. Even that Celestia had to take care of that problem sometimes also, but she was so tired. And Celestia, you should take a break. But Celestia nodded that she wanted to, but she couldn't. She had to take care of the royal duties in Canterlot and some other problems later on. But then Shining Armor put his hoof to the ground and said, I said you should take a break. He was very demanding this time. He normally doesn't talk like that to anybody. Celestia and Luna just looked at him, mostly tired. But who would take our place? Luna said. Cadence had decided that she could stay in Canterlot, but she was going back to Crystal Empire. But then they talked, why about Shining Armor take care of your place, so you two can get some rest for a couple of days. Can you handle that, Shining Armor? Of course, said Shining Armor, because he had been sitting in Canterlot for many times before. It has happened that he took control of the Canterlot only for a short time before. But then Celestia and Luna went to their bedrooms and talked. Where were they going to for this break? Were they going to Saudi Arabia or going somewhere else, perhaps in the Crystal Empire? But then Cadence gave them an offer. What about going to Ponyville to see Twilight? Because they weren't going to have a masquerade festival there in a couple of days. So why wouldn't they go there and have some fun with Twilight and her friends? Celestia thought that would be a good idea. At least they would have had some fun and also at the same time relaxing. So Celestia and Luna packed a bag and wrote a letter to Twilight saying that they are coming over for a visit for a few days to relax. And Twilight was so excited to see her, especially both of them. They took the train over there, a special train card just for them. Twilight was meeting Celestia and Luna at the train station with Spike. And the news about traveling that Celestia and Luna was going to stay in Ponyville has spread fast in town. Many of the ponies were there to see them, but unfortunately for them, Twilight managed to teleport them, all of them, back to the castle without seeing any other ponies. She didn't want to make them a disappointment, but she promised that they could see them at the festival the next day. So Celestia and Luna was given their own bedrooms. Even that they tried to be relaxing, but Luna, she had no problem. she actually went to bed right when she came there and fall asleep right away. She has been so tired, she wanted to spend any moment anymore awake, so she went right to bed. But Celestia, she wasn't that much tired, so she went with Twilight to the library, so they talked a bit, ate some snacks, and just talked. And around afternoon, Celestia was in her guest room, just laying there, just listening to birds outside and resting. She said to herself, "This is just what I needed." She felt so tired, and after a while, she also fell asleep. The same evening, Luna wakes up around 8 p.m. and Celestia wakes up around 6 p.m. So they spend time together, even having some dinner with Twilight and Spike, and just having a great time. So Celestia mentioned about this masquerade festival that's going to happen in Ponyville the next day, which Twilight mentioned. And Twilight said that she's going as Starswell the Bearded, as always, said Spike. And Twilight just glared at him with a funny smile. "Yes, Spike, as always." Luna decided to go as a princess. Normally she wouldn't said, but Celeste said, "Why is a princess? You can go something else." And then she decided she wanted to go as a changeling. And Celestia decided to go there as a witch. Something that she has never been done before. They haven't done this masquerade festival in years. For nearly 500 years, for exact. Twilight asked Celestia how they did this festival when they were young. They were the same thing, except that for one thing, they were held in Candlelot. But when they also had in the old castle during the first few years when it was built. But since after the castle was abandoned, the tradition was moved to Candlelot after the new castle was built. That same evening, Celestia was standing out on the balcony at her room, just looking out of the quiet, dark city town of Ponyville and hoping this festival will be a good day. Even she was a bit excited about this day, but then she realized she didn't have any costume. But luckily for Twilight's idea, she told her that she was going to Rarity's boutique to get her new. So Twilight and he invited both Celestia and Luna to go there. So they did. So early next morning, they went first, had some breakfast, talked a little bit, and went to Rarity's boutique around 10 a.m. and 10 in the morning. It was actually about an hour before they usually open. So they went there so that Celestia and Luna can have private time in the boutique without any ponies spotting them, asking questions. After they went in, she locked the door so no other ponies could go inside. She even had the sign closed. She told ponies that they will open as normal, but this time they had Celestia and Luna there just so they can pick out their own dresses or costumes for the festival. So after they picked their costumes, they went back to the castle, talked to some ponies on the way, but Celestia and Luna, they decided to just walk around town just to meet some more ponies, talk, and get some fresh air. And even afterwards, around 4 p.m., when it was time to go to the festival, they all went there together, and Spike, he was dressed as a prince, with a sword, armor, anything as a prince do wear, almost like as a knight. And both Celestia and Luna had a very great time. Celestia asked Twilight if it's going to be something else, like if there's going to be any competitions, and Twilight nodded. They're first going to have a costume competition to see who's going to win the best dressed costume, and it's going to be a magical show appearance. And Twilight asked if Celestia was in too much of the magical show, and Celestia smiled and said yes, that she was. But later, as the magical show was going to appear, Celestia and Luna and Twilight were standing there, waiting, but Spike, he had actually sneaking away to spend time with Rarity, since that was going to be their date for the night. But then, suddenly, this show started. And Trixie Lulamoon, or also known as Trixie, was going to perform for everyone in town. What Celestia didn't expect, when she saw Trixie in her costume as a witch, she was stunned. She started to blushing as when she looked at her. Luna and Twilight didn't notice, but when they looked at Celestia during the middle of the show, they saw that Celestia was focused on Trixie. At first they thought maybe that she was very much into this magical show, so they didn't pay much attention. But after they came back home to the castle, Celestia was still didn't speak much, she was just staring. During the late dinner, Twilight asked her what she thought about this miracle show. It was okay, I guess. It has been in a while since I saw any good medical show, said Celestia a bit stuttering. Are you okay, Celestia? She asked. And Celestia just blushing and nodded and excused for going back to her room. But the next day, Celestia went to see Trixie and asked her about this show she was doing. She asked her some questions like, where is she often doing a performance? And Trixie said that she's going anywhere. But then she asked if she wanted to see more. And Celestia just nodded and then sat down and watched Trixie do some more tricks. And then Celestia asked if Trixie wanted to do something special, like maybe have some lunch together with her. Trixie was taken aback. She didn't have any idea that one of the ruling princesses asked her to have lunch with her. But she didn't mind. Elisa had something to do else. So they went to this restaurant. And so, of course, they had a great time. But Twilight was walking by with Spike and noticed Celestia and Trixie at the restaurant. But they didn't pay much attention to it. They just seeing that Celestia had fun. But then, seeing them how much she was laughing with Trixie, how much she was blushing, and they was suddenly holding hooves. This is curious, said Spike. I say that, said Twilight. But they didn't walk up to them or something, so they walked back to the castle, doing their business. But later, when Celestia came back to the castle, Twilight had a talk with her about Trixie, and then Celestia admits she had fallen in love with Trixie at the same time when she saw her at the magical show the day before. Trixie, are you sure? Twilight asked. She was stunned, but she was not against this, just surprised. Even Luna heard about this when she came down from her room. Is my older sister in love with Trixie? She said. All that Celestia could do was just nodded and blush a lot. But Trixie hasn't been told yet. So the next day, Celestia decided to meet up with Trixie at her cabin and talk to her. would tell her about her feelings, even they haven't known each other for that long. But she felt very happy. And of course, Trixie at first was just laughing. She just started laughing against right in Celestia's face. She fell on the floor, laughing. She could not really breathe. "Are you really in love with me?" she said, and laughing. Celestia took it very hard and didn't say much and just left and ran back to her castle. Celestia was running past Twilight and Luna when they were standing outside in the entrance and saw Celestia run up to the room, lock the door, and heard crying. Both Twilight and Luna looked at each other, puzzled. "What did just happen?" said Spike when he walked in. "We don't know," said Luna. "I had to go to talk to Trixie about this," said Twilight. And now she was a little bit, not angry, but she was a bit worried. How could Trixie say something that could offend one of the rulers of Equestria? She knows that they could lead her to very serious punishment if that was severe. So, but Trixie and Twilight went to her wagon to talk. Trixie was just laughing again, but you saw that Twilight was serious. She was severely serious in her face. That Celestia was actually in love with her. "She really is in love with me?" she said, Trixie. And Twilight said, "Yes, she is. And you heard her." And she didn't realize it. I didn't know. I thought she was just joking with me. "Do you think one of the rulers of Equestria, our kingdom, would make that as a joke?" And Trixie realized how foolish she was being. And she asked Twilight if she could go back with her to the castle so she can talk to Celestia and ask forgiveness. Twilight just nodded and they walked back. Of course, Celestia didn't want to open the door either to Spike or Luna, but when they heard Trixie, she was quiet. Twilight decided to leave them alone, and they talked, and she opened the door, and she was in there. At first, they couldn't hear anything, not even quiet, not even talking, a whisper, but soon, laughter. Laughter. First, it was Trixie, and next, Celestia. Both of them actually started laughing, and that was a good sign for Twilight, because she thought that Trixie was in a big trouble, but she wasn't. Later, Celestia and Trixie and Celestia came down and informed both Twilight and Luna that they were now dating. At first, they wanted to keep this a secret from the public just for a while so they had to get used to being together. So after about 2-3 weeks, Celestia made this announcement to the public that she had now found her first actual girlfriend in such a long time. She was waiting for acting. She was expecting that public was going to be serious, asking her why suddenly take a mare that she could take a stallion. But it wasn't. Of course, there was some questions or some wonderings what she did now and then nothing in the past. But since she has been rolling so much long time, she hadn't been focused in romantic time with anyone. But the public was just happy to see one of the rulers happy after such long time. And that's most of the time Celestia had to go back a few days later back to Canterlot, but Trixie, she promised to go there as soon as possible as she could. And turns out she was going to Canterlot the next week on a magical tour. It was actually the first stop on her tour in Equestria. She saw Celestia when she was there for a couple of days, and then she moved on. But then she went. The last stop on the tour was actually in Canterlot again. and they spent time together. And nearly 5 years had passed, and Celestia and Trixie, they actually got engaged on their 5th anniversary together, and only a couple of months later, it was actually a big wedding. One of the biggest in the year. Cadence, shining armor, and was so excited for Celestia and Luna. She could not be more happier, and especially to be Celestia's bridesmaids. Cadence, she had been asked to be the one to perform the ceremony, which she was happy to. And Twilight, she was asked to be the ring bearer, and Spike to be Celestia's best man, or at least bridesmaids for that kind. And of course, the party was afterwards was so big that Discord and Pinky had organized. And even during the party, Twilight and her friends could see how happy Celestia and Trixie were. And even Trixie's parents was so happy to see how happy their daughter were together with Celestia. And of course, after this big party, they went to the Crystal Empire for 2 weeks on the honeymoon. But then, only about a short time after they came back home, Trixie decided to move in the castle with Celestia. But one day happened something that Trixie didn't expect. She was kidnapped by Ruroka ponies outside in town. And Celestia, she was furious. Who dared to kidnap her wife? Middle of the day, middle of the street. But it wasn't actually a kidnapping. It was actually to celebrate Celestia's birthday that was going to happen a couple of weeks after the wedding. So Celestia has been so happy, she has totally forgot about her own birthday. And of course, she apologized and even forgave all the ponies who she thought kidnapped her wife, like that. And a couple of years later, about 5 years per exact, Trixie and Celestia have been talking about maybe starting a family. But of course, they often wonders who would be the parent, since Twilight had learned a spell that could help a couple, especially two mares, to have a family of their own. And Trixie, she decided she wanted to be a mother first, so Twilight helped her. And then, it took maybe about 6 months before they found out that she was actually pregnant. And then a couple of months later, they found out she was having a daughter. And they was very happy with this. And they got to name their daughter Crystal Magic. And then the day came when Crystal Magic was born. She turned out to be a unicorn like her mother, but she was very, very talented in magic like Celestia. She was so very talented at it. And all her life, during her fillyhood, she wanted to be something great. She wanted to help others when she was a little. She always stood up for her friends and family. She was very good in magic, like her both parents, and singing. But was the most thing that she wanted to be when she grew up was to be a doctor. Even as she was a princess, she wanted to be a doctor. And she actually did study for months, for years, to be a doctor. And she actually became a doctor at age 23 years old. And some point there, she actually moved from Camelot to Manhattan, where she met her future husband. And they even had 2 daughters of their own. About 4 years later, they decided to have another child. And this time, Celestia decided she wanted to be pregnant. and she had a daughter, but turns out she was an alicorn, and she was named Sparkle Blueberry. She was so talented in magic like her older sister, but was most of all, she was very good in singing. She loved to sing all her childhood. Throughout the fillyhood, she actually sang all the time. She won a few talent shows in Canada and in Manhattan, where she lives sometimes. But all of this, she wanted to be a singer. And of course, after some time, she changed her mind, and she wanted to be at least a singing teacher, or at least to do something in music. She was also good in instrument, but she actually became a music teacher in a local school in Canterlot. But she also wanted to be something more. Even that she was now a singing teacher as part-time work, she was also a princess. And one day, she actually fell in love with the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. He was over a visit with his parents in Canterlot for the diplomatic mission. And after that, she actually married him only 2 years later, and they moved to Saudi Arabia. And they later had 2 sons, 2 daughters, and she was very well loved by the ponies there. And that's how Celestia and Trixie Lulamoon found the true love and got married. The end.